our mandate? What is Jesus' expectation? What does he tell us to do as the church? He's going to build it. The way we build is by lifting it up. And then we're instructed to go, make disciples of all nations, baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. Which brings us back to the thing about the wise and foolish builder. Our commission is to teach everybody to build on the solid rock, obeying everything he teaches. It doesn't deviate. I mean, that's, you got to read it, figure it out. And he says, and surely I am with you to the very end of the age. We go about this commission. When we go about it, he's with us as we follow his strategy. So, how do we go about fulfilling the Great Commission? The how-to. Give you a hint. Our sermon text with Matthew. How do we go about fulfilling that Great Commission? Obey all the words I told you. That's the commission. That it says right here. Teaching them to obey everything I commanded you. Okay? Now, just to clarify about how this part of his plan. How serious do you think Jesus is about doing things his way? Is it kind of like, yeah, you guys, you want to. Yeah, okay. How serious do you think he is about it? So-so? Or does he mean it? And you might want to think about that. That's really important. That's a really, really critical question. How serious is Jesus about this stuff? How important is obedience? I'm going to rattle through some Bible verses real quick here. In John 10:27, Jesus tells us. He says, his sheep listen to his voice. He knows them. They follow him. In fact, John 5 says, they will never, verse 5 says, they will never follow a stranger. Do you realize Jesus' sheep that are in his fold will never follow a stranger? In fact, they'll run away. Do you realize that? They will run away. So we might want to consider maybe sometimes when people run away from you and I, maybe they're seeing Joseph's pants and not Jesus. Because the Word says he's going to draw us, all men unto him. His sheep follow him, and quite simply, those who aren't, don't. There's another one of those black and white Jesus statements. He says, my sheep follow me, listen to my voice. Those people who are not my sheep don't listen to my voice. So very stern, very straightforward Jesus language. He's saying, if you're not listening to Jesus' voice, or you haven't been attuned to it, you're lost. We're lost. John 14:15 says, if you love me, you'll obey what I command. John 14:21 says, whoever has my commands and obeys them, he's the one who loves me. John 14:24, anyone who does not love me will not obey my commands. John 15:10, if you obey my commands, you'll remain in my love. John 17:6 says, they were yours, you gave them to me, and they have obeyed your word. The ones who obey the word belong to him. Do you realize that? The ones that belong to Jesus obey his word. So I got three fingers pointing right back at me like, I mean, so I'm getting pulled with this good road. So I'm just sharing misery. So Ephesians, Paul tells us, slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you obey Christ. So Paul's talking about obeying Christ. Thessalonians, Paul puts even a sharper point on it. He says, he will punish those who do not know God and do not obey the gospel. Farther on in Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians 3:14 says, if anyone does not obey our instructions in this letter, take special note of him. Do not associate with him. Paul says, do not associate with anyone who's not listening to Christ's words. The writer of Hebrews says, and once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation. For who? For all who obey him. James tells us, do not merely listen to the word so as to deceive yourself. Do what it says. That goes back to the wise and foolish builder. This was not just an isolated story that Jesus told to make good reading. It is echoed by every writer in the New Testament. Every book of the New Testament points to this same thing about where are you? Are you listening to him? Are you lifting him up? Or are you looking for something in the world? Are you looking for something else? Because if we don't seek God, if we find our comfort in somewhere else than Jesus Christ, we're lost. We're lost. We just haven't realized that he has what we're really looking for. 1 Peter, he says. Now Peter walked with Jesus. He knew him. For it is a time for judgment to begin with the family of God. That's us. He's talking about the family of God and judgment. And if it begins with us, what will the outcome be for those who did not obey the gospel of God? We've heard from James, Peter, Luke, Paul. 1 John 2:3 says, we know that we've overcome. How do we know if we've overcome? See, a lot of us wander around. We're not really sure. But 1 John tells us, we know we've overcome. This is 1 John 2:3. If we obey his commands. How do we know if we've come to him? According to John, we obey his commands. Now, a lot of people try to make this a legalistic thing. It's not about being legalistic that everything gets obeyed. It's a condition of the heart. Part of the obedience and part of this following of Jesus is realizing that his word is truth. And a lot of people get sidetracked on this and get off into a Pharisaical bondage where they think, oh, I'm going to try to do everything as we should. But it's when we see those words, what do we do with them? The appropriate response is, Lord, I know what you're telling me to do. You got to help me. I need more of you. I got to get closer to you because by myself I can't do this. That's different than saying, oh, that's a bunch of food. I'm not doing that. Two completely different dispositions of the heart. That's what Jesus is looking at. He's looking at our heart. Do we dismiss his words and say, oh, that's not for me, irrelevant, I'm doing it the world's way? Or are we convicted? And we say, yes, that's what it says. Yes, that is true. And assume a lowly position and say, Lord, save me from my unbelief here. Because I know where I need to go, and I'm not where I need to be. John continues in 1 John 2:5, and he says, but if anyone obeys his word, it says God's love is truly made complete in him. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. You can't have a compartmentalized faith. You know, I'll hear the comment from folks a lot of times say, oh, well, they're just nothing but TCE Christians. You know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. And we kind of lift ourselves up and say, yeah, I'm here every Sunday. I'm not like one of them. But then you find somebody a little bit more devout than you are and say, oh, you're just one of those Sunday-only Christians. Quite often it's the Baptists who go Wednesday night. But then they'll bump into somebody and say, I'm a 7-day-a-week. 1 John 3:21-23 says, dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from him anything we ask. Why? Because we obey his commands and do what pleases him. 1 John 5:3 says, this is the love of God, love for God. If you have your Bible, you want to put like yellow and red arrows and everything in this verse.